All right, I think we're ready to go. Thank you for coming. Great crowd. I'm so happy to see everybody here. My name is Lori Stitz. I am the Center Director at Iowa Western Community College here in Harlan. And I just wanted to just briefly explain how this kind of came together. Soon after the disaster in April, the tornado, I talked to Todd and Lee, we were chatting, and we're like, you know, we really need to have a community get-together to talk about what happened, how we responded, what worked, what didn't work, and just learn from each other. And honestly, I wanted to do it probably back in February or March, but you know, like anything, you drag your feet. And we had an advisory board meeting at the college, and Todd was there, Terry Tornaton from ISU Extension, Steve Kinkle, and I brought it up again in March, and it seemed kind of late, but you know, it's never too late. And so we decided to move forward with the idea, brought on Alex and Jordan, and met a few times, got some marketing going, and here we are tonight. And so very happy it all came together. Hopefully tonight it's an opportunity for our panel to share. We want you to share also. We want you to ask questions. We want you to share your experiences. We can pass the microphone around when we get to that part. I think we're going to start with the panel, you know, talking through some of the stuff, but we want it to be interactive. And so we're going to start with a video. A lot of you probably saw it at the time. It was out on social media. It was put together about 2 weeks after the tornado. And it was meant to be sent to the governor's office, sent on to the federal folks in hopes that we could get assistance and federal aid and anything we could do to try and rebuild and get going again. So it's a great video. I really think it had an impact. I watched it on the anniversary again, and every time I watch it, I just get chills, honestly. And so it's sad, but it was a good tool to have. And so we are going to watch the video, and then I'm going to turn it over to Alex to introduce the panel, and then we will go from there. So thanks again for coming. I do want to give a shout out to those committee members I mentioned, also to Mitchell Ruschenberg, who helped us with our marketing. So he was a great help when we got going. So, all right, thank you.
Fire, be advised, National Weather Service displayed Shelby County in a tornado warning.
Shelby County, we got one on the ground.
People in Harlan need to take this seriously. This is a violent tornado. It has been on the ground for about 30 minutes. Very violent. Please take shelter if you are in the path of this.
I mean, look at the video, though. That is a violent and powerful tornado. We brought up radar for you, moving 35 miles per hour. Look at the backside. Yeah. It's trying to spawn another tornado. Oh! There's two of them.
And I think there's a possible 3 behind that.
These are multiple vortices that are being spawned on the backside. Look at this. And you just said, whoa, a fourth one. Look at the size of this thing. This thing is massive. This thing is roughly 4 miles wide.
In the heartland of our nation, a storm of unimaginable force struck without mercy. An EF3 tornado swept across Shelby County, devastating the rural community. An estimated $100 million in damage was left in its path. As it tore through the county from the lower west to the upper north end, it did not discriminate. 30 homes were left flattened, many agricultural businesses of Shelby County at a standstill, incalculable livelihoods shattered. But, amid the rubble, there is resilience.
George Langenfeld found a silver lining in the devastation.
That's why I love the Midwest. Neighbors still help neighbors.
That community includes hundreds of Harlan High School students who made the trip out to help clean up.
We live in the best place in the world. It's a really great community and we love it.
Governor Kim Reynolds also visited Shelby County and updated us on where federal relief stands.
We are in the midst of applying. We've sent an application in for a presidential declaration.
In Shelby County, Iowa, homes were destroyed by these tornadoes.
Well, it's been 1 week and a day since the Arbor Day tornadoes, and recovery and rebuilding remains a daunting task.
The damage is leaving folks and the county with a lot of work left to do.
The debris field running through their community. From the tornadoes, it's not 30 blocks, it's 30 miles.
48 homes, 72 farmsteads, 16 hog confinements, and 170 barns were hit hard.
Estimates show damage is close to $100 million. It is simply stunning.
Our community is coming together, rallying around those in need and refusing to be defeated. Yet, despite our best efforts, we cannot do this alone.
County Supervisor Steve Kankel doesn't want his community to be forgotten.
We need more assistance, and this community needs it now. Shelby County lives and our ag producers' future depend on it.
We need the support of our federal government to provide the resources and assistance necessary to rebuild and recover. Together, we can rise from the literal ashes, rebuild our homes, and restore hope in our community. But we cannot do it alone. We need your help. Please, stand with us in our time of need. If you're a community member, reach out to those affected and continue checking in with their needs. If you're a community leader, please share this message above and beyond Shelby County. If you are a state leader, please share our message across the country.
Can everybody hear me okay? I can usually project pretty well, so I won't carry on that. My name is Alex Londo. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for Shelby County. Like Lori had said, we've been working on this for a few months. We all wanted to put this on a little sooner, but we want to focus on the things we've learned from that day to today. Because there was a lot of things that even me, I'm professional and I didn't know, I have no all the answers. I don't know all the answers. People that are in this room learned a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the panel and let everybody speak a few minutes on each of their special topics, and then we'd like to hear from you guys on questions that you have or concerns that you have moving forward. So starting right here, we got Jordan Sanders with EMA. Next to him we have Trevor Langfeld, who is affected, and then we have Grant Mankey from Iowa, or the Department of Agriculture. Steve Capel, former board supervisor. Scott McLaughlin from, who's also affected. Nancy Bucker, also affected. Brent Shelby with Assured Partners, and Kathy Buman with Shelby County Emergency Preparedness. So we'll start the other way. We'll start with Kathy and just kind of give everybody a couple minutes to talk about things that they might have learned. And I'll use the mic to pass around and get people flying.
I'm not Alex, I'm kind of soft-spoken. So, as Alex said, I've been with the Shelby County Emergency Preparedness Coalition now since 2014. My job is to think of all the bad things that could happen at the hospital and to plan for it and to train for it. So, as far as our experience as a hospital, we were extremely lucky. We had 2 patients that were tornado-related, and they were easily taken care of with the staff that we had. We do obviously have plans in place that we can set forward if we need to. So I guess my strength to you today is to help you figure out what you can do to prepare for the next time.
Evening, Brent Shelby. Thankfully wasn't directly impacted, but had staff that did. Trevor's wife Diane works for us, so that was a whole deal for our staff and for that. And obviously, I'm not with Assured Partners. That's totally okay. Assured Partners is another insurance agency, and that's fine. Most of you that know me know that. That's totally fine. I'll do more Q&A in terms of me speaking insurance lingo, because that's probably the least favorite topic of the evening. So.
It's one of my favorites. I'm Nancy Bucker. Our farm was hit, was the first one shown, I think. The article in the newspaper said experts, and I know Scott and Trevor and I did not want to be experts in this tornado, but I'm telling you, we learned a lot. And I just made a little list here, so I'm going to stick to it. FEMA, what a joke. It's not even funny, because actually we had filled out so doggone many forms and everything, and when I called one time it said, oh, you'll be on hold, just wait for 167 minutes. And then one time they said, your payments for your hotel are going to run out in a couple of weeks. I had never received a payment for a hotel, and I never stayed in a hotel. I mean, it just shows some of the incompetence. And then a post to see how we were coming with cleanup. The major question was in every room, do you have a radio in here? I never did find out what the question about the radio was for. But I'm telling you, I was not impressed with them. But I was totally impressed with the people of Shelby County and Harlan and all the workers, and Steve Kinkle and Todd and everybody organizing things. The churches, the local churches, that center up at the Church on the Hill, I think it's called now. I went there every day, and it was so helpful. They were encouraging, and when you face a mountain like we were looking at, it was really helpful to have encouragement. Our church family was awesome. Came out one morning and there's like 50 people with rakes in our yard saving our perennials and stuff. I mean, this community is utterly amazing. With the high school kids, you saw that. I don't want to belabor that. Then I wanted to mention insurance. The magic words are replacement cost. And you should, I tell everybody, check to see if you have that. And we did. It's rare, I think, when you go to your insurance agent and call your adjuster for encouragement. And ours have been absolutely wonderful. Angela Stein was our gal, and our adjuster walked us through helping us understand the process. And every time I asked, help me understand this. And then he would totally and walk through what he needed, what we needed to do. And they have just been amazing and wonderful. So I would totally sing their praises. And then personal lessons. What have we learned? Well, it's always good to reflect on something hard that you've gone through, and we've gone through several hard things in the last few years. And so for us, the first step is always, what do you want me to learn from this, God? We're Christians, so we're always checking out with the Lord to see what He wants us to learn from this. And we have learned so much. You know, we had one thing that sort of survived the tornado on the oldest building, and it was a little sign in memory of our son, and it said, it's an infinity sign, and it says, see the light. Those were our son Andy's first words, and he did always point people to the light. And that was such a strength for us to see personally, to always look to that sign. It's now hanging over the fireplace. But God's got a plan through it all. We knew that, and we don't know what's up for our place after this, but it's come a long way in the rebuilding. I tell you, Tom Powers and Lanny Pecci and Paul Schmidt and Jason Anastasi, they were just so encouraging to us all the time. So what we've learned is people are wonderful, and God is good. He's got a plan. He's walked us through. When you first look at that big mountain, we decided we can handle 3 things every day. So 3 things is what we did every day. Otherwise, it's just too overwhelming. But, yeah.
I'd like to just say ditto. I really echo a lot of the same comments, and I think you'll probably hear, some of the similar themes. I mean, the community, boy, I love where we live, and boy, it's all going to come back.
Yeah.
But I think to start out with, I'd recommend take a look at Matthew 6:19. do not lay up trailers. Simple version of that is don't get attached to your stuff. It might leak. So, that said, we live about 10 miles north of town on what I call, everybody calls Old 59, the smoothest road in the county, right? Anyway, go fast enough, it's smooth. Anyway, but we're roughly 10 miles north of town, Linden Road, Old 59. Pretty much every building we have was touched in some way or another. The older construction probably took a little bit better than the newer construction, but it was something else. I mean, one of the hog confinements that we saw, the hog barns that were on the video were ours. We actually got hit by 2. They made a comment about spinning off little tornadoes or little twisters. Well, the main one hit our home place, a little spin-off hit one of our other hog sites. So anyway, I guess, be here to answer questions, but whatever we can do to help people, insurance is a key component to it. We had good coverage. I wouldn't say that there weren't gaps, but again, to echo Nancy's comments, replacement cost is the key. I mean, especially what's gone on in the last 3, 4, 5 years with the inflation. You can say there's an inflation, but that's not what I found when I went to spec rebuilds. So anyway, that's a key component. But appreciate everybody coming in this evening, and hopefully we can be of value.
Thanks, Scott. Well, I was one of the blessed ones because I was 2 miles from the tornado. I got to work with some awesome people, and I got to be very humbled. Because I live on a century farm, and I never knew. That's always one of your biggest fears. If something like this would happen, how you would handle that. And I had 74 families that showed me how to handle that. I didn't know what to do at first, so I thought, whose place should I go to help pick up? And being a supervisor, I thought, well, maybe I could go help and see what help they need. So I called myself the dot connector. And it took me 2.5 days to get to 74 different places, and I never knew what to expect or how people were going to look at me asking questions. But the thing that stuck out the most, I never went to a place, not one, and I was only there maybe from 15 minutes to a half hour at the very most, finding out what they needed, what help. They were so overwhelmed, so it was a little at a time, and then went back a little later, and then after that a little later. But in those 15 to 20 minutes, the thing that stuck out the most is before I left, I either got a smile out of somebody or they were laughing. And most of the people were at home when it hit, and the National Weather Service and the local stations did an awesome job of preparing everybody. I don't know what it would have been like. Thank God it didn't happen at 1 o'clock in the morning. But people were just thankful, one, to be alive, and so overwhelmed at the support they got without asking for it. That really stuck out to me. Personally, some of the things I've done just in the last, whether a few days after, the first few days after, I got hold of my insurance guy, and so we're sitting down and we're going over insurance, even though we do it every year. But I ended up raising my coverages to get replacement 30-40% right out the way, because as Nancy talked about, if you guys don't leave here with one thing at all, leave with this. Don't think that the government is going to fill the gaps. It's a lot easier to make sure you're covered with your insurance and pay a little bit easy every year, and your family decides what risks you want to take, because there's some things out there you find out really fast, like cleanup or fences. That stuff ain't covered. Or if it is, or replacing trees, shrubs, and landscaping. That can be an expensive thing, and you might get a little, or most get nothing. And it can be, I know one farmstead here in the county was over $150,000 to clean up their farmstead. Some are big bills. So, but it's been awesome working with everybody, and I'm really here tonight. I want to hear from what do you want to see, or a question, what question do you want answered? What did you come here wanting to learn? So ask us that question. What about this? Because I know if I was a business person and a banker or something, I'd be thinking right away, if it hit my establishment, where am I going to be operating at tomorrow? Or a week from now? What are my employees going to be doing? I mean, besides the insurance I talked to you about that I did personally, the next thing I did when I got a time a couple weeks later is I videoed every room and every building and everything on my farm, because I'm sure, George, you can't remember everything that you had. And go put that in a safety deposit box. I had 3 large trees that I kept when I built my new house that I didn't want to take down, that are too close to the house, but they're not there no more. If anything that could fall on the house, it's not there no more. So just things like that. Yeah, they're hard, but when you see that big old tree smash and destroy the house that would have stood otherwise through the tornado, don't get too attached, right? It's not worth it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to all of you here on the panel. Unfortunately, as Steve mentioned, not to depend on the government, I do come here from the government. So but yes, I'm Grant Mankey. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Iowa. Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nagg, who you saw on the screen a couple of times with Nancy and with Steve, sends his regrets. He's not able to be here, but I'm honored to be here on his behalf. And our role at the Department of Agriculture, first of all, our mission is ensuring consumer protection and food safety and animal health, and promoting conservation efforts to preserve our land and enhance water quality for the next generation, and then just providing leadership in all aspects of Iowa agriculture. And all aspects of Iowa agriculture does include disaster response. So this was a tremendous, difficult learning process for us as well. And we have very limited tools and resources and authorities specifically for disaster recovery within the Iowa Department of Agriculture. We have a few programs to help repair windbreaks and conservation structures and prevent plant cover crops and things like that. But our role is more of a facilitator again, sharing information, investigating, solutions, finding resources, connecting dots. So a lot of the similar things. Lots of conversations the Secretary was having with Steve all the time. And I just give so much credit to the people of this county for your leadership in elevating this issue to a state and a national level. And I believe there were some results that occurred from this. I mean, some huge gaps that were identified in government programs, where there were new programs created to try to address some of those gaps. I don't believe that would have happened without Shelby County's leadership. There was a disaster recovery assistance bill that passed and was signed into law this year at the legislature, signed by Governor Reynolds, that included some new funding and components that I don't believe would have happened without Shelby County's leadership. So I thank you for that. Very much looking forward to the discussion, your questions, and one of the key takeaways that we had at the Department of Agriculture, again, I mentioned animal health. We've been dealing with foreign animal disease, highly pathogenic avian influenza for the past 3.5 years. and we're always looking to what's going to be the next thing, and whether it's foot and mouth disease or African swine fever, we're constantly preparing and drilling and doing tabletop exercises and revisiting how we're going to plan and respond for things. And I think we need more of that type of an approach to weather disasters, whether it's floods, whether it's hail, whether it's tornadoes, whether it's derechos, you name the weather disaster, we need to be, we just need to prepare more purposefully and do so more often going forward. Thank you.
My name's Harlan, folks. It's hard to follow up everybody getting towards the end, so I can reiterate that the community was wonderful. I knew people had skid loaders, but I didn't know if so many had tractor loaders. Lots of people helped clean up, help with kids, food, you name it. So I don't think we could ask for much better help than we had through the whole thing.
That's quick. So I'm gonna talk about some things a little bit different. Our initial disaster assessment, my wife and I did in 24 hours. We went to all 72 locations in the first 24 hours. That was done faster than any other disaster that's happened around here ever. The problem with it was we did too good of a job and our list got kicked down because we didn't word it correctly. We gave all of the details for every property and every damage. And at the state level, they just want to know if it's damaged, not damaged, moderate, or destroyed. Since then, the state has started a new software program. There's a new damage assessment tool. It's a statewide disaster assessment where you can add pictures, you can give all of the details right there, and it uploads straight to the state, and then FEMA can access it once the state has accessed it. So that's very good. The initial assessment went great. The initial response went absolutely amazing. We had fire departments out, the sheriff's office, every deputy was out. All the houses were checked on and all the residents were checked on very quickly. The part that we didn't do so well on was the recovery aspect. And Grant just talked about needing to do tabletops and practice recovery. So our response went great. Our recovery, we learned a lot of things from. There's a lot of things that we can change. I think Alex can attest, we would like to do some things with the state and our local EMAs around Southwest Iowa to start having better practices for response. We beat recovery not like we do response. I'm sorry. Our response went great. The recovery aspect, I'm reading my notes and it was backwards, did not go well. So that's something that we're working on in our office is the recovery aspect. So hopefully that will go much better in the future. Not that it went bad, we just learned a lot of things. We haven't had to recover from something like this before. To follow something up that Steve said about taking pictures and videos, 100% recommend doing that every 6 months even, every year. Don't just do it once now and then 3 years from now, oh, I haven't done that for a while. If you want your stuff replaced by insurance and you don't want to look for a wrench 3 years from now that you never need and then all of a sudden need it, do that 100%. Another thing that all of our leadership needs to think about, I see board supervisors out here, every disaster starts local and it ends local. So starts local, state comes in, federal government agencies come in, and then they start leaving, and it's left back at the local level once again. So everything starts here and ends here.
Okay, we were also supposed to have Dana Greenwood from the state. He was going to talk more along the state assistance side and FEMA assistance side. He wasn't able to be here, unfortunately. I am by no means an expert on state and federal assistance. I know enough to be dangerous, but that's about it. So I'll just make a couple of comments on that. First, I'd like to say the state programs, we have added some from our county specifically. to more impact the ag side, because there wasn't hardly anything before. I'll use the mic, my mouth's getting dry. So there wasn't hardly anything before. So the state has added some different things that were agricultural specific, but most of the individual assistance programs at the state and federal level are meant for towns. This was one of the first things that we've had where it's a 30-mile track and never hit a town. Actually, and one experience I'll talk about briefly was part of the process, you have to drive these FEMA and SBA people around to all these damaged houses so they can take pictures and verify that that house is destroyed. So we drove them to 30 miles and they kept asking me, why aren't we stopping there? Why aren't we stopping there? Because everything but the house is gone. And they said, well, that doesn't make any sense. They got no assistance from the federal government, but they still had just as much damage as somebody whose house might be gone. Those are all things that we're still pushing, and we're going to continue to push until we get some answers with it. It's making progress, as Grant and others have said, but there's more work we can do. So with that, we'd like to hear from you guys. If anybody has any questions, any comments, their own stories, we'll open the floor. Laura and myself have microphones. We'll give them to people.
And maybe I can kick it off because there's a few things I have that might get the conversation going, and we'll see who wants to speak up on it. But just things I heard months after, weeks after. I mean, we talk about it all the time. One of them, if somebody can speak to it, whether it's here or out here, a lot of things I heard are how do we keep our records, where we keep our records, do we have duplicate records, are they electronic records, and the best way to keep records when they get blown away when everything goes. And so if there's anybody here who has thoughts on that, I'd like to hear it. Also, and maybe Brent, I don't know, you might want to weigh in on this one, but a lot of people had expensive farm equipment, and you buy it, you insure it, but then you keep enhancing it, and so the value on it goes up because you keep adding cool things. And so from an insurance perspective, how do we remember to keep adding to our insurance when we make our equipment better? And then the other thing, I don't know, Scott, I think an immediate concern for people who have employees, because you do. That's an immediate concern when you have the damage that McLaughlin's did. My gosh, my employees, how can I take care of them while I'm going through all this? And so just some thoughts, on that as well. So I don't know who wants to take which one first, if anybody has any thoughts, but I just thought I would get it going with a few of those things.
Yeah, as far as the employees, I'll just pick that up since it was the last question or the last comment. That was one of the first things I thought about. We were right in the middle, we were just wrapping up planning, actually just towards the end of it. We're probably 2/3 done, I suppose. But number one, do you have a tractor that you can operate that has glass in it? Then the shop is gone. The roof of the shop, the ceiling, blown-in insulation is laying on top of on top of the planter. And you're standing there looking at each other. It's like, I couldn't even walk up through the yard after that tornado. I come out and I can't remember if it was Alex or Jordan, you guys were at the bottom of the lane before we even got out of the house. And walking up to the yard, I'm looking at LP not flaring off, but gassing off. I'm looking at diesel fuel barrel with a puncture in it. And then I look up and there's like, yeah, that's a live power line. I probably shouldn't be here. But anyway, you couldn't even get to the work for the sake of what you had to go through. But then that secondary question is like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, part of our coverage for our insurance was covered debris removal. We did a lot of debris removal all of 2024. Up through the end of December. It was, that was really probably the majority of the way. We had our regular work anyway, but then that was, our extra project for the year to help keep all the wheels turning and keep everybody we had with us. So,
not an easy answer, right? I don't like paying my own insurance bill. So, but it's just having that honest, frank conversation of what's important to you, what's not. Coverage has changed so much the last 5 years where you could get replacement cost on almost any building you wanted. The last 2 years, that's not the case anymore. So we have more conversations with folks about, if this farm was blank, which buildings would you have to operate? Well, these 3. Okay, then we want to get replacement costs on those 3. Yes, that barn is nice. The big, beautiful barns that I grew up with as well. Do you use it? Kind of. Probably not going to get replacement cost on that anymore. So I would rather folks spend their money on replacement cost on their important buildings and maybe not insure a barn, for example. It's all the stuff that people don't think about because no different with anything, but it's never going to happen to me. We're human. So those extra coverages cost money. We all, again, like myself, don't love paying my insurance premium. How do you address it? You just have to have very honest conversations, and I tell people, I don't care in a good way. I don't care what you decide as long as you're making an educated decision. As long as you know, because generally when we have somebody that is upset, it's, well, I thought it was covered this way. And it's, well, did you ever ask your other agent or us or anybody? And a lot of times we don't, and that's okay, we're human. In terms of the pictures, I've said that for years and years and years. It used to be when I first started before smartphones, we take a bunch of pictures and put them in a safety deposit box. Now with a smartphone, you can stand in a room and spin in a circle in about 5 seconds and pause a video. If you email it to yourself, that video never goes away like we tell our kids with social media. So you don't have to put it in a lockbox, just email it to yourself. I assume everybody's got email in here. Take a video, hit send it to yourself. Have a folder in your email that is insurance photos. Yes, update it more often than every 3 to 5 years. Whatever you decide works for you is what works for you. Probably our biggest hurdle with helping people understand the risk was in what we had happen with all the increase in material costs and equipment costs. I mean, we had folks buying semis literally and then turning around a few months later and selling them and making $20,000 or $30,000. So then when they bought it and insured it, and at renewal we're saying, hey, you need to bump the value of that. That was hard. And I get that. Those are all human nature things, but those are the things you have to do. We're like taxes. Again, I don't think anybody likes paying their taxes, but most people go in and sit down with their CPA once a year. So you need to do that, ask the questions, ask the things that are, hey, what are the common things that people don't like to buy? And we'll tell you, and then you, again, at least if you're educated on the decision you're making, then you're making a decision with eyes wide open.
So I think Brent's going to be able to answer this a little bit better than I am, but I've been to a lot of meetings over the last year about what happened in Greenfield because that hospital was hit. And one of the lessons that they learned is that their insurance company paid for them to continue to pay their workers at times when they were not able to give those workers work. I don't know if that's something that would apply to a family farm, but that is something that you can ask your insurance agent, whether you have a business or a family farm or whatever the scope is. And as far as storing records off-site, all of my family photos and records are all scanned and stored on the cloud, so I'm screwed if the cloud gets hit by tornado. And we do that at the hospital too. Everything is available off-site, so we have access to it from another way if we're not able to do it on-site. And I'm just going to give, I know we're not funded the government right now, and I get that, but ready.gov has just list after list after list and toolkits that you can use for your home and for your business to help you plan and prepare for not only how to respond to a disaster, but how to recover from it.
So to answer the lost wages or paid wages for employees, most businesses, yes, you can get that covered. It's a very simple answer. Some farms, again, not all farms, but I don't know the right percentage, I'll say under 10% have employees. A lot of them are family run, just on their own, etc., so they wouldn't have lost income. We call our farmers every fall and ask about grain prices. Is corn always $6 or $4 or $8, right? So it's, well, when are you selling this year? Are you going to sell before December 31st or after because of taxes? Well, I'm going to hold it till February this year. Well, your peak season blanket ends December 31. So we have farmers every year that are like, well, what did it say last year? Oh, I'm not doing that again this year. So same way why that annual review is so important is for those reasons. Because year to year, especially with farmers, your grain marketing plan changes every year, depending on what your situation is.
People ask about other records. We were fortunate Dave's office wasn't hit at all on the north side of the house, so all of our records were there. Our passports, however, were right on my desk, and we had planned a trip to Europe. They stayed right on my desk, even though the window blew in, the wall was high pressure sprayed with mud. The passports were right in this little wood box on top. But I would suggest, well, I mean, the north side was safe. I don't know how, not with you. I don't have any advice on that. Any other? No.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate Brent's analogy of the tax appointment every year. I mean, just with all the conversations that we had and Secretary Nagy had, that was one of the huge takeaways, is taking that annual meeting with your insurance agent seriously. And I know, I'm sure everyone at this table would agree, like I'm sure you view your insurance agent a little differently than you ever did before. I mean, going through something like this, and yes, some of the, again, in the midst of a very difficult situation, the most encouraging conversations the Secretary had were with people who had followed that advice in advance of regularly keeping up. Because again, we were in multiple years of huge inflation where the cost of everything is going up, and you miss a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. And we had a lot of those difficult conversations too. It did not keep up at all. So that's just a new habit that everyone in the agriculture community needs to adopt.
Another thing that kind of goes with the insurance stuff and the pricing. One thing that my insurance agent told me, and I was nowhere near damaged, but she told me something to think about is that when you have a widespread event like a tornado like this, your local products, your wood, shingles, even in Council Bluffs and Omaha, those prices are going to go up even though we're here in Shelby County. So if you have a fire and it's a single incident, you're not going to pay excessive pricing. But if there's a large scale event anywhere within a couple 100 miles, the prices are inevitably going to go up.
Yeah, I had not thought about it, but Tom Bowers was out boarding up our windows before we ever got home. And because he'd done work on our farm for years and years. And it was just such a blessing to see him there when we drove as close as we could get. But he said, tomorrow you need to pick out the windows. And that was really wise, so that we could get the order in right away.
So, Megan Mondo, Shelby County Historical Museum, if you saw her approach me. At the museum, of course, they do a lot of record keeping with photos and documents, and she's probably quite the pro at scanning in and digitalizing things, and she's offering help. If anybody would like to contact her with how to do some of those things, she very kindly stepped up to say that, so I just wanted to share that. So we do want to open it up. Questions, comments, things you guys learned. Jeff Sonderman, I see you in the crowd, so I know you probably learned some things if you want to share, but go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, unless you want to go somewhere else first.
You're good.
My name is Bob Richmond. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I live out on F58. We lost everything out there. I had pretty much echo the sentiments that Nancy had brought up earlier with everything that she brought up, basically the FEMA. We went through 7 inspections, 6 appeals, and nothing happened there. On the insurance side of things, the exact same things. Look at what you have, make sure that you know what you have. I honestly think that someone at the state, national level needs to approach something when it comes to insurance similar to lending money. There needs to be truth in insurance, just like there is truth in lending, so that you have a very good understanding when you buy a home and you loan, you get $300,000. They have to tell you, yeah, you're borrowing $300,000, but by the time you get done, you're going to pay us $700,000. That same thing needs to happen in insurance, so that people fully understand what they have in their policy. You know, things like business versus personal, having separate policies for things that roll on wheels, having separate policies for things that are collections, having all of these things that are not covered. And I'll say this, we've been very blessed with our insurance company. You know, we have Angela as well, and everything was wonderful. We've been very happy. You know, and initially I wanted to say thank you to Steve Kenkel for coming out to our place right away, coming back later on. Jordan, Alex, I've worked with you guys for years. Locally, I'm on the fire department, I'm an EMT down in Shelby, and those people basically followed the tornado up to our house and pulled us out of the basement. So a lot of wonderful things at the local level, but I would echo that I think at the federal level, it's just a mess that needs attention. So aside from that, that insurance thing was kind of my biggest issue that I came across when I was finding out all these things that I thought I was insured for and everything was good, and I found out the hard way that that was not the case. But again, I'm not going to complain. I watched a lot of people that went through it that probably had not great insurance coverage at all, and they're still struggling to this day. So I would say take a look at that and if there's something that needs to be done. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, the business, we run a business out there. My wife trains dogs out there at our place as well. And we lost everything in that as well. And again, you know, I thought the insurance that I had on my business was going to cover some of that stuff, and it turns out I had a lot more liability than I had on anything else. So that's all stuff as well. If you have a small business of any kind, you're running insurance, again, get a look at that, because you may not have what you think you have there. And then finally, I also run a large business down in Shelby. And talking about, you know, contingency plans, I want to make sure that people are thinking about those things. You know, what are you going to do if you have 700 employees working and something like that hits a large facility? We've got to have a plan for that. And I know Alex and Jordan, we've talked about this, but we do some training from time to time. But realistically, if a monster like that hit our place would have hit the facility out there in Shelby, I mean, it would have been a disaster of epic proportions. So, I mean, we are doing what we can on our end. I mean, we've actually built a much larger underground tunnel now that we can hold about 150 people in for a storm shelter. Again, when you have a large business, though, it's very hard to get enough of that to get everybody in one spot and all protected. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to do as businesses, and I'd like to see, you know, the government and the local agencies help come up with better ideas and better things and better plans for some of that stuff. And I'm willing to help with that too. So if anybody has stuff that they're working on, I'm certainly open to helping with that. But overall, I really just wanted to say thank you for the local approach from everybody. And again, same thing, just people from our church, people from the schools. I mean, we had hundreds of people out there for weeks helping us out, you know. And the same thing with the cleanup. I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but that cleanup is expensive. And I mean, I had half of it donated from some local businesses to help, but I still paid over $50,000 to get things cleaned up. You know, so those are things that we have to think about as well when it comes to this stuff. And, you know, again, FEMA was not a big help with that. And that was where I was kind of hoping that we would get some help, and that was a struggle all along. So, but thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. Thanks for putting this on.
Do you have a couple of specific insurance examples? Like, boy, I learned this.
Yeah, actually.
Any little things I think.
Well, like I said, I found out the hard way that if it has wheels and it rolls, it has to have its own policy. Plain and simple. From a golf cart to a tractor to an antique vehicle. If you have firearms, my policy in particular, I have a large firearm collection that I've collected over my life. And it was, I found out I only had coverage $2,500 for my whole collection. And if I had to go beyond that, I needed to have a separate policy for everything on that. Jewelry, we had a $5,000 limit for the total thing. We thought we had lost my wife's wedding ring, and praise God, we found it about a week later. So, but I mean, that alone would have exceeded the policy for the jewelry. So I mean, there's a lot of little things that you don't think about. Take a look at those policies, talk with your agents, make sure you know what you've got there. So.
There's something that came to mind, it's like, there's the little things, the simple things, and then there's systemic large things to consider. The simple thing is, one of the simple ones is, wear shoes when you go to the basement, because you don't know what you're gonna come up to, and you don't know if you're gonna have shoes. But on a large scale, this is maybe kind of directed more towards Grant and the state or even the federal level. One of the concerns I have going forward is insurability. We were not renewed on another policy that we have that's related to the hog buildings. And it wasn't that we were canceled, it wasn't because of this tornado, they're pulling out of the Midwest. And it's a systemic issue that, whatever you believe about climate change, everybody has their own beliefs about it, but we are in a pattern where we're having some significant volatile weather on a regular basis. And the actuaries and the loss ratios for the companies, it shows it. They're not fools. They insure where they can, write coverage that has value to them. And we're having an issue. My concern is that we aren't going to be able to have underwriters or insurance companies that are going to be able to write policies for us. And less competition is a bad thing when it comes to that sort of product. So anything that can be done to help shore up or encourage or foster competition and coverage that's of quality in the Midwest, from a property casualty standpoint would be huge.
Sorry, you mentioned volatile weather. And everyone here knows that better than anyone, but just statewide, last year, we started the year and we started planting at the tail end of 204 consecutive weeks of drought. That was followed by the 6th wettest spring in Iowa history, over 150 years of records. 125 tornadoes last year, all-time record in the state of Iowa. Historic flooding in northwest Iowa, yet another derecho on July 15th, then the driest September ever recorded in Iowa, 150 years. Then we had a nearly uninterrupted harvest, and then finally November rainfall that amounted to over 160% of expectations. So that's just one growing season. And remarkably, we had the highest corn yield in the state history and the tie for the second highest soybean yield. But yeah, so there's some crazy things happening with our weather right now.
I found out, and we were not affected by the tornado, thank goodness. But we did get, when there was hail, we got hail. And I found out at that time that if you have ever had a claim, when we bought my car, we got hail the week after I made the first car payment. And it didn't total it, and we got it fixed. And I used the insurance money, and then after my car was paid off, then last year we got hail and it damaged the car again. I had to fight with the insurance company. I wouldn't say fight. I had to argue with them and then find proof that we actually did fix it the first time. And thank goodness the neighbor backed into the car like 2 years ago, and there was pictures from the insurance company at that time that they could prove that the hail damage was not on there. So I would recommend if you have any claim for anything, if it's completely blown away, then that's totally different. But to take pictures after you've had something fixed, if you make a claim, whether it be your roof or your car or whatever, and I don't know if you give that to your insurance company, but keep that in any invoices, scan them, save them. I have a folder now for all the fixes for the hail, so that if it happens again, I I have proof that I did use the insurance money to fix it when I made the claim. And they were willing to look through their records to find the pictures, so I wasn't really fighting with the insurance company. It was very stressful, because that's what we paid for, was for it to be covered.
I think to reiterate her point, but say it in another way, roof age is going to become a big deal in personal lines with homeowners if you're not seeing them already. It used to be you get replacement costs on a 57-year-old roof that had a 30-year life on it. That's not going to happen anymore. But you tell me if an asphalt shingle is 11 years old or 10. I have no idea how to tell, right? The roof looks nice. So yes, receipts are important. The other thing that I'll say this a little more staunchly than I mean it, so please don't take this out of context. You need to start putting wind and hail resistant roofs on your houses as well as wind and hail resistant siding. We have vinyl, we had damage. When we replace it, we're not putting vinyl back on. I know that's easier said than done, and it's not feasible in all situations. Just one example, shingles, or class 3 to class 4 shingles that are wind and hail rated. If you don't have those on your roof in the next 5 years, you're gonna face struggles. So as you go put those things on, start thinking, budgeting, planning for not even 3 to 5 years from now, but 10 to 15. Keep your records. I think the roofing companies are going to start stamping the backside of their shingles. That would make the most sense. It sounds like they're going to. Thankfully, that would be a huge help. You just flip a shingle over and it tells you the manufacturer date. But yes, keep your records. Unfortunately, you had that experience because we still see people, unfortunately it's the bad 1 or 2% always. We had some people we know didn't turned hail in a few years ago. We had a bad hailstorm 5 years ago maybe. Didn't fix it, and were trying to convince us to falsify records for them, which I quickly reminded them that is fraud and I'm not going to prison. So keep your records. Again, they're doing their diligence, unfortunately, because of the bad 2%. It takes time for you, which is unfortunate. Yeah, it is your responsibility, right? You keep your records.
When we changed their record.
100%. Yep, and they didn't think, hey, I need to keep a body shop bill for $2,500. So take responsibility for your records, all the above. Have a folder somewhere, scan it, email it. Don't leave it in case your desk is destroyed, right? So scan all those things in. Again, that folder we talked about earlier with your photos in it can have all your scanned records for roofing, siding, windows, garage doors, all of the above. It's pretty hard to tell how old carpet is when your house is completely gone, right? So.
Alex touched on this briefly when he was talking about the federal and state government, that the fact that if you live within the city limits, you're treated much differently than you are when you live out in the rurals when it comes to any type of assistance or even, like you said, even understanding. Those folks were in our office and they came from all over the country and they had no clue what rural life was like. They just had no idea. But along those lines, would you kind of address the things that are imperative to farming that you can't insure? And talk to folks about whether it's trees, whether it's fences, whether it's that old beater truck that gets you around your farm every day, but all of a sudden now it's gone, and I have to get another vehicle just to be able to do that. So if you just touch on some of that stuff real quick, I'd appreciate it.
Also, some of just the cement. We've got lots of cement around the farm yard, and that's really not covered. Address this, Scott.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring up vehicles. We have a couple of older farm pickups, and in my infinite wisdom, I went from full coverage to just liability in March. So we are driving pickups with dented hoods, caved in roofs, and cracked windows still. So yes, it's a consideration, but it's like, okay, you might ding up one pickup, not every pickup you have. But it's definitely a consideration. As you're talking, just the progression of what has to happen first in timelines. you don't know what you don't know to start out with. I mean, you've got people that come with 70 people, 70 to 100 people the next morning. I didn't pick up anything, all I did was direct traffic. I mean, so you start to get things cleaned up, then you start to figure out what you need to clear out of the way. Then you start to think about, you know, how do you rebuild? There's timelines on ordering replacement grain bins or farm equipment if it's available, that sort of thing. And so you have some assistance programs available, but it was 3-4 months before I could even think about applying for any, you know, real meaningful assistance. You know, the FEMA, man, what a joke.
Amen to that.
I mean, it's so impractical. False hope is what it is. It sounds good on a political tour, but that's about the extent of it. The way we are arranged, you know, we worked through FSA and USDA first for, you know, to help start covering some of those gaps that we were already starting to identify in our insurance. Then, the way we were arranged, we were able to apply for SBA loans to kind of help fill additional gaps. I mean, we're, quite honestly, it's been years, even with the good insurance, I would say, you know, just my opinion, but I think we have good insurance. But the gaps, the uninsured things that you just don't know about, can't see, it's like we were just talking the other day about farm personal property. Well, how do you prove a negative, you know, to the point of taking pictures of things and keeping track of it? It's like, well, I can tell you where the wrench was, but I don't know where it is now. I know I had it, you know, that sort of thing. But I mean, as far as those programs go, in the timeline and lengthy process, the governor's office, I think, and you might need to correct me, but they looked at interest forgiveness on loans. And, well, you have to be awarded a loan to have the interest due. You know, we were able to take some USDA programs and make them fit for farm storage facilities, you know, that sort of thing. Those are the easy ones to get going. We had an SBA loan that just got approved a month and a half ago, I think. You know, so you talk about the timeline, you know, you're going to die on the vine in some cases with the timeline, some of the way this stuff works. So, you know, been trying to provide quality feedback and just share the experience, and I think there's a lot of folks that are working on improving the system, but I think, again, it just goes back to that the recovery is going to be local. It's going to be the folks in your backyard. It's going to be your personal lender. It's going to be your personal insurance agent that are going to kind of help keep you shored up and get you through it.
Now you're on that subject, Grant, a couple things we need to follow up with that totally frustrated me and frustrated the farmers. I'm looking at Jeff out there as one of them. That isn't right is a lot of these farmers wanted low interest or 0% loans from SBA. And you know that farming is not considered a business? And it's still that way today. And I've talked with Grassley, Ernst, so if any of you people out there ever talk to your congressmen, your senators, ask them where that's at. Because at first I got to run around, well, you know, Biden's in office and all that. Well, now we're in total control. Has that changed? No. Yeah, right. And so that needs to change. And another stupid thing they have out there, USDA, they will pay to go out and clean your fields up. Where's all that stuff come from? It comes from the neighbors or your own farmstead. And farmers operate, their office is their farmstead, but it will not pay a dime to clean your farmstead up. I mean, there's common sense things that have to change. And I am volunteering right now. If the state wants to put a committee together and continue to work on this, I will be on that committee. I'll follow through with some of this stuff because I hope someday it's not me, but I would hope somebody would be fighting for me if it was. And these are things that really came out of what happened here in Shelby County, and they're still not corrected yet.
Yeah, that's correct. And again, with Steve's help and the numerous emails and calls and letters, and I still have my notes from the disaster recover night that you had, where all the different agencies were there and different companies and all the things you identified then. We had a chance, Senator Ernst did, she was the ranking member of the Small Business Committee and arranged a congressional hearing on the topic of disasters. And Secretary Neg was on a trade mission, so I actually got to testify and make some of those points in front of the U.S. Senate Small Business Committee. But to your point, it has not been corrected yet, and we need to continue to advocate for that. There's no reason why the terms, the conditions, the availability to defer the first payment and no interest accrual for 12 months, you can get that for SBA, not for USDA. There's just a lot of that stuff that needs to be fixed, and we're committed to working on it.
And I also want to say one thing that really hit home with me, and being in my shoes, you can tell this still is out there, is when we had that recovery night where everybody could go around down at Vets and see all the things, all the help. A lot of it was false hope again, I'm sorry. And I had several landowners come up to me at the end of that and said, "Where's my relief? There's a federal and state disaster here." And I went around to most of these places. But again, I repeat, where's my relief?
You know, oddly, FEMA set up in our building when they came to town for all that. And so I'm coordinating them out in the big atrium and stuff and how they were setting up. They said, well, our security guard is going to sit over here at this table. Security guard? I get it now.
What I wanted to say is on a much smaller, I guess, perspective than all of the big farm stuff, but kind of like Scott hit on. Some things I feel like people don't necessarily think about is like the preparedness and, you know, wearing shoes downstairs or having shoes down there. Maybe if it's like we have little kids and some of them don't like to sleep in pajamas. They like to sleep in their undies. So we have extra clothes downstairs because if our house were to get hit, I would hate for them to have to come upstairs in underwear in the pouring rain, you know? Taking your medications downstairs. One thing that Anita taught me is that if you have like a dog, have a leash downstairs to be able to keep it on a leash and hold on to it during the tornado. Have like, you know, food and water for them downstairs. If you get trapped in there, what are you going to need for all of your animals and everybody with you? You know, that's something that I just think was something that I never thought about as far as animals go and like what to kind of have prepared, you know, as far as that goes.
So kind of following up on that, I'm going to give another plug for Ready.gov because they actually have those lists of what to have set aside for your pet, what to have set aside for yourself, for your business, that kind of thing. So, you know, medications, clothes, food, water, first aid kit, all of these things that you don't think about when you're going through your day-to-day life. And keeping tabs on that. If you have medication down there, don't let it expire. You want to make sure that it's good medication. I was going to make another point, but I forgot it. What's that?
ID, like a copy of your ID. I was worried that I was trapped and like passed out and nobody would know what I was.
Yeah, so
Taking me to the hospital. My family wasn't here. Nobody would know.
Scott just asked me to hit on, like, how long can a claim be open? How long do you have to file a claim? It's not like statute of limitations if you do something wrong, thankfully. But there are limitations. The biggest thing I would tell you is if you are making an honest effort and you're in communication with your adjuster and the insurance company, they're going to work with you. Where they run into issues is Scott has his roof gets hailed on, an adjuster shows up today, he doesn't talk to the adjuster for 3.5 years, and 3.5 years from now he's like, you know, I should re-roof my house. And then they're angry that they don't get the appreciation. As long as you're talking with your adjuster, it doesn't have to be daily and weekly, regularly, and you're letting them know you have a plan, they're going to work with you within reason, right? I mean, obviously, in a small town, just getting started to build a house now, you can't, not everybody can get their house done, right? We only have so many contractors. You can't, coverage isn't in perpetuity though either, so there is some give take, right? Like, there's people we have preferred, friends and family, we want to do stuff. You gotta meet halfway, but just communicate. If you're communicating, they'll tell you what they need. Hey, can you touch base with me in 90 days? We just turned a hail claim in from the second hailstorm. I turned it in Monday. They just didn't think they had coverage with all the stuff going on. They weren't real worried about it. Like, hey, you know, I've kind of forgotten about it now. We went and looked at it and turned the claim in Monday. It'll be covered at replacement cost. Now, do they have 5 years to replace the roof? No. Typically, your policy says 180 days, but you can file for an exception, and I've never seen one denied. So.
On the back end of Brent's thing, I work for Brent. I'm an insurance agent, and I'm married to Trevor. So our house got hit. But if you think you have hail damage, but you aren't sure, and you aren't sure what to do, call a contractor. Don't have a claim that doesn't pay out, because in the end, it is going to bite you in the butt. We have had that conversation with so many people.
Call them first. They prefer it.
Yes.
I say it's psychological. If you have an adjuster come out and they don't think you have damage, they're human, they can make a mistake, right? Then you have the roofer you trust come out and they say, no, I think they're wrong. Now you're fighting a psychological battle with an adjuster of being told you don't know what you're doing, you're wrong, etc. Versus, hey, I had a roofer come out, and we have several good ones. TT Roofing was out, Brian was out, they looked at it. They'll tell you face to face, the good ones will. Some of our roofers have had to have tough conversations with people of, hey, I know all your neighbors have hail, you don't. You know, they will be very honest of, hey, this is really bad. If you get an adjuster that's saying no, they're wrong, I'll meet them out here, etc. But call your roofers and your contractors first. We still get people say, hey, can you just send an adjuster out? No, not because we don't want to, because that's not good for you. Your roofer is going to be the one you're going to trust anyway, right? People are a little, hesitant about trusting an adjuster, thinking they have, their best in mind for them, and I get that. So call the person you trust first, and if they say, no, you don't have damage, you don't need to make a second call. You don't need 2 estimates. In these cases, 1 works. And again, if you have a good roofer that you know that you trust, they'll fight for you in those gray areas. We have several of those, unfortunately. So, for bringing that up.
I had a contractor offer to come to my house when the adjuster was there, and I took him up on that offer, and I think that paid dividends. He walked around with him and showed him the gutters, downspouts, siding, roofs, everything, and everything was covered. I really appreciated that he made the effort to say, let me know when the adjuster's going to be there, I'll send a guy over and go around the house with him. It worked out really well, so count on your local guys to help out, like you said before.
I'm Bob Beeson. I farm by Harlan. I was lucky enough not to get hit by the tornado, but I was unlucky enough to be the president of the golf board, and our golf course got destroyed. So we spent a long time getting it back, and we were very fortunate. Our insurance was pretty darn good, so I was happy there. A lot of things that we did there was volunteer stuff, and the night it happened, we had 50 people there to help you. And the next morning, we had 100 people there to help you. And it was unbelievable, but we didn't even know as a board what we should try and accomplish. I mean, nobody'd been through a tornado. And we're not owners of that course. We're just volunteer people trying to make a course good for the public. And, we love our course, and it's good for the retirement people and anybody that wants to golf. So, but our struggles were, and I hate to bash FEMA, but I'm gonna a little, because we've been working with them for over a year, and maybe there'll be some money there someday. They'll never tell you, yes, you got money coming, but we'll give it to the federal, and they'll work it all the way down, and then they'll give it to the state, and maybe someday there'll be some money there, and I hope there is. I mean, we were lucky enough the insurance took care of most of it, but I think I've had a dozen meetings with those people, and the people we work with are good. You know, they're trying, but they got bureaucracy on top of them, and oh, it's frustrating, just like everybody else has said, but you know, I'm hoping there's some money there yet. But I gotta talk about volunteers a little bit. My son is down in Glenwood, and I know it's a big rivalry with Harlan, so that's hard to get along with. He brought a busload of 60 football kids up to help us pick up stuff the Sunday after it happened. And we all quit because it was pouring rain, but they put on ponchos and they worked the rest of the day. And you know, you just can't thank people enough. I mean, we had farmers with great big tractors, we got people with skid loaders, we had dozers out there, excavators, all volunteer. And I know it's probably $100,000 worth of money that we would have had to spend if we didn't have that kind of support. So I just want to, I don't know if I thanked him enough. Actually, I'm off the board now, so I'm done with this. But no, I love my course, and I'm glad we're back in business, and things have turned out pretty good. But I know there was one program that the state came out with. They were going to help us replant 50 to 100 trees. They'd give you $30,000 to $40,000. Yeah, everything's great. You go out there, you spend hours pointing out all the trees that are dead and gone and ruined, and yeah, we can get you this and this. The next meeting, well, you're not in town, so you're not eligible. I mean, we have 100 damaged trees, but you're not eligible because you're not in town. Well, to me, I'm good as being in town because I'm a big project. I'm a golf course. So, you know, that's kind of stuff, but I do appreciate the help that might be out there someday. And I gotta thank Steve Kinkle. He came out the next day to see us and offered to, you know, give us help in any way we could. As all us volunteer board members are, we weren't even sure what direction you're headed that next morning. It's such an overwhelming thing, you know, so. Just kind of had to get all that off my chest. I don't really have any good advice. I think maybe my course should have more procedures on what to do if that thing would have hit with 100 people on the course. Because I don't know if we really have a major policy on what to do. And maybe we need a siren or something. I guess I'm just thinking things out loud. But we'll work on it, and everybody come out and golf someday. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Casey Ring, I'm the high school principal, and we organized a day to have kids come out and do cleanup. And it was about like a week and a half after the tornado. And the biggest takeaway I had was there were a lot of kids who were leaving school between that time from when the tornado hit until we had our cleanup day. And it was a lot of students who had connections with families that were hit by the tornado. So those kids had someone to go and help. They had a connection, they could go and help someone. But we also had a large number of students who wanted to help but didn't know how. They didn't have transportation, they didn't have the means or a connection. And I tell you what, that day we sent everyone out, we were done early. Because they were so passionate and wanting to help that it just, like, everybody who saw them, I was watching kids throw stuff up out of creek beds like 30 feet for an hour. I'm like, geez, I forgot what it was like to be 15 years old and strong. And they're running through fields and throwing stuff on trailers. And it was because they finally found a way to help. They've been seeing it, you know, on the news and social media and whatever. and had that connection, so it was good, really good for them to see how we help our community, and this is what we do as a small town and a small community. We step up and help people no matter what, so.
They were so energetic that day, they wanted to try to lift one of my grain bins that was ringing around the tree, and I said, that probably weighs 25,000 pounds. I don't think
You know, Casey talking just reminds me, I live on 14th Street between Durant and West Park. And that night as we're watching the news and the tornado came the way it was coming, my brother took off West Park and he was filming, because when you looked west of town, you know, you could see it, and for a while it looked like it was coming straight at town, honestly straight towards the schools. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, you know, what if it hit the schools? And of course it took off the direction we all know, you know, that it went. But it just makes you pause and think, my gosh, what if it would have hit the schools? And what if school was in session? And you guys planning for something like that? And so, yeah, it just, when you talk about it, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought for a while it's going to hit the school. So, anyhow.
Our thing in our house is now we take tornado warnings a little more seriously. You know, like I think 10 days later, there was one going down 1100th Street, which is right by us, and you know, my husband came in and said, oh, better get to the basement, and boy, it did not take me long to get down, because other nights you'd be like, oh, just, you know, let me know if I need to come down, but now you just take it so much more.
Our toddler learned real fast what radar looks like, and what it looks like when it's going to rain.
Yeah, I always kind of laugh because my daughter's 28, but from the age of 5, 6, you know, I didn't feel like I had to watch the weather or the news, because if I saw her go back sitting at the steps, I know something was coming, because she was paying attention, because she was afraid of storms. And so that whole what do you take to the basement is a real thing.
So one thing or a couple things that I want to make mention of. Everybody's last thing, tornado warnings more seriously. I know I have gotten, and several other people have gotten, a lot of questions of, why didn't the tornado siren go off? I didn't hear it. So a couple points to that. We only sound the tornado sirens. Our policy is in the towns that tornado warnings, or the warnings are at. We might have a warning that includes Shelby and Tennant, but it doesn't include Portsmouth. So Portsmouth sirens are going to go off. And we get a lot of people who call and are really concerned that we didn't hear, there's no siren sounded over here. You weren't in the warning area, we're watching it. We only sound them for the areas we're concerned about. A second part of that is those are outdoor warning sirens. A lot of people rely on those to hear them inside, but they're not designed for that. They're designed for if you're outside, you're going to hear it. The inside stuff is supposed to be a weather radio or the Alert Iowa system on your phone. Whether that's a text, a phone call, an email, however you sign up for it. But there's, you know, we do our best to cover the towns the best that we can with the sirens that we have. But they're designed to notify people outdoors. And a couple of places that we've talked about putting them is in county and state parks, golf course, different areas like that aren't serviced by any of them. The other thing I was going to say, I know that the trees have been kind of a bane for you, but it's really improved my golf game. Document everything if something happens. Everybody's talking about documenting everything before. Document everything during and after as well. I know one thing, working with the golf course and even with some other towns and people, they had so many people show up to their house, there was no record of it. And that was all stuff that could get reimbursed, or potentially reimbursed, I should say. And then also, I never thought FEMA would want to know where a GPS coordinates for a burn pile would be, but that was something that they asked, and they were going to reimburse if we knew where the burn pile was. Have a plan for what you're going to do with your debris. FEMA does have debris plans, and we are working on a county debris plan. Quite frankly, it feels weird to say, but we were fortunate that it happened where it happened, because the DNR wanted to know where our debris was going, and I said, I'm not asking, don't go look at the fires. I'm not going to tell them to put it out, it's being taken care of. That's what you need to know. So But if it does hit a town or something, we need to have a plan for what we're gonna do with a town's worth of debris. And that's something that we're working on.
Also, if you haul anything away, take a picture of it, because you might have something there of value, and if you're gonna turn it in, they wanna know about it. Or if you burn it at the pile, take a picture of it, or record if you know what's in there, but the picture's a lot easier, video. So, that's one thing, that's another thing we learned from.
Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say is, and I've kind of had different opportunities to bring it up, but I'll just say it now. The part that I was really concerned about a lot of people who were affected by this was once a lot of the work got done, or they got done working, and they got time to sit down. And it really hit them on what happened. So I want everybody to make sure if something like this does happen, take care of yourself. Don't forget in all of this to take care of yourself as well as your neighbors, because that was my biggest worry, was the mental health piece and somebody, it just being too much for people. I know we have resources available and lines that you can call and different things. Whether people utilize them, that's not for me to know, that's completely personal. But it's just a plug that I want to put out there. Don't neglect your mental health and make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Good point. Also want to say thank you, not for coming tonight, well, I'm just kidding. I want to say thank you to the community. The community and Shelby County State Bank ramrodded it, but they raised funds to give to provide grants for the impacted families, people, and for things that insurance didn't cover. We raised right at $80,000, okay? All through volunteers, didn't cost us a dime. And my next thing I'm gonna say is, again, going back to look at your insurance policy, because I'm gonna give you a statistic. Okay, we raised $80,000 here locally to help people. FEMA awarded, we have $95 million damage in our county. FEMA awarded $83,000, almost as much as we raised. That's 0.09 of 1%.
The entire county.
The entire county. Yep. 0.09 of 1%. So, what you can walk away here from it, I gotta take care of myself. And hopefully some other things will happen. There's some changes. I tried to find out from Todd's help and Alex's help, I tried to find out from FEMA for 3 different occasions. I know they were here for a couple months or better, 8 or 9 people. What they spent on salaries, lodging, transportation, blah, blah, blah. Never did find out, but I kind of think I know why. But I know this isn't a FEMA bashing, but they'd be better off not. I suggested to the federal government, whatever they did spend here, to just from now on give it to the county, half of it. That way they can save half of it and let us fight it out. And don't give people false hopes.
Does anybody not have the alert app? If you don't, you really, really should. I mean, you will not sleep through it.
And renew it every 6 months.
So you get a text and it's, I mean, go ahead, I mean, it's.
It'll send
if
you a
don't have
text. It'll send you a text to renew every 6 months. It just comes up with Smart 911, and you just go through and make sure your information's valid. The link is on our Shelby County website under the 911 EMA tab. You just follow it and sign up with an email address and a phone number and pick up what alerts you want, and you're good to go.
Help your neighbors get it, help your in-laws get it, anybody who's not tech savvy, help them figure it out too.
Alex, are there ways to have, like, I don't want to say donate, but there are a lot of people that I work with as an insurance agent who are like, oh, I don't have a cell phone. So is there a way for them or for someone to provide like the weather radios that they should have, or someone that they can contact to get one from?
You might be able to contact the weather service over in Omaha and see if sometimes they keep some that they can give out. Otherwise, I mean, they can use a computer if they have a landline phone or something. You can sign up to just have a landline phone call come in. It doesn't always have to be a cell phone. So, but the weather radios, we used to get some of them sent to us, but I think they just all go to the National Weather Service now.
And we really want to hear, if you have questions, if you came here tonight thinking, how would I handle this, or you'd like to learn about how this works, ask those questions. Because we're here to try to help. If we know, or if we don't, at least we can try to, that's something we need to work on.
I just wanted to add that I want to echo what the school talked about with the kids and what Bob talked about with bringing kids up from Glenwood. I was fortunate that, and I was very honored to lead a group of kids to Scott's Farm there, southeast of your property there, your residence. What a working group of people we have. Take advantage of those. Keep in mind, if we have something that goes on, we can get lots of kids from lots of communities, football teams, basketball teams, whatever. They're wanting to help. They're wanting to, they're young adults in our community. And what a great asset we have. And I was so impressed on the work ethics from those young adults.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks so much. I feel like I might be just preaching to the choir, because most everybody was on site or somewhere where they were, affected or part of the recovery effort. But you can't pick up after a tornado with equipment, all of it. I mean, you get big stuff, but I mean, the stuff is the size of a football. I mean, and it is from here to, as far as you can see. And so the only way that stuff is going to work is with people. And thank you so much to everybody that came out, to everybody, I think I speak for everybody, but thanks for everyone that came out and helped us and helped neighbors, and because that's the only way it was going to get done to the people.
Styrofoam insulation is not easy to pick up.
That's not your friend, no.
100 acres.
No, it's not your friend.
Neither is the metal from the shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. I'm actually new here and I don't know anything about the tornado that happened here, so I really appreciate all of your stories and input because I don't have experience with that. But I didn't know if it would be beneficial. I actually lived in Newton when the derecho went through, which is a totally different experience than this. So I didn't know, I had a couple of things that I thought might be helpful. We didn't even know what happened. We had no warning. It hit nearly the entire town. Most people had tree damage. So kind of like y'all are saying, everyone jumped out immediately and saws for days. That was the thing that everyone could tackle immediately. But the damage was so much more widespread in the city that hiring anyone, getting insurance adjusters took about a week for us. They came from states all over. It was impossible just to get help to get started on your claims. So then hiring, Nancy said something about getting windows immediately. I cannot tell you how true that is. We could not get anything repaired. People in the town were looking everywhere to try to get help, contractors, supplies, anything. And we are a tiny town. There was no one to get help from. So what I wanted to add to that, to just know that that might be a complication, is getting stuff ordered, is scammers. So once you ran out of resources in the town and a friend of a friend of a friend who hundreds of us needed help, we had people come in that would do one job, be hired, get down payments by other people, and then would disappear. So I did want to put that out there, that once this was such a community-wide effort, it seems like, and everyone was able to get the help they needed here. But we were not able to do that. There were just too many of us. Even getting help from Des Moines and everywhere else, we just didn't have enough people to help us. So that's something to really be cognizant of. Insurance-wise, my experience, I just want to say we had damage to 3 sides of our home. Really, really old metal siding. You could never match that siding, no matter how hard you tried, it was old. Only would pay for the 3 sides. So just something to keep in mind. Obviously, you had to replace the whole house. So there are a lot of things you just don't think of. You know, cutting the rest of the tree down that fell on our house, that was not covered. There are still a lot of things up front that are really challenging, but I think with us and having a lot more concentrated people that had similar damage is what made it more complicated in our situation. And having absolutely no warning, and none of us even knew what a derecho was before it hit us. So just a little bit of 2 cents. I do have a question though, and this is kind of an old school, but I really don't know the answer to it. We don't have a basement. I truly don't know what to do here. If something happens, there's no good structural area in our home.
Make friends with your neighbor.
Okay.
Now might be a good time to introduce Heather Dearson.
And I did
She
see
was
the-
asked to
the
join
brochure,
us
yes.
tonight. I don't know, Todd, if you want to
Okay,
introduce her.
come on up.
Okay. Sorry, Heather, not to throw you under the bus.
So when the Winterset tornado happened in 2022, we're builders and remodelers over kind of by the Des Moines area. And my husband saw the need, like how many slab homes and slab and grade homes, how many houses had basements that people were stuck inside of, that kind of thing. So we were there about 20 minutes after the tornado happened, so we were kind of there to kind of help with some recovery missions, different things like that. There were several deaths kind of like as in the Greenfield tornado and stuff like that as well. So we decided that we needed to find a solution. And so a lot of the tornado shelters that were offered in this area were all like either cement, so you had to have them done when the house was built, or they were precasted. And you would have to have like large equipment and large equipment operators to come in, and so then it would be very heavy. And again, that would be for something that would be existing as well, or new construction as well. So we kind of designed then something that was a modular shelter. So it comes in 1-foot panels. It's, they meet FEMA and ICC 500 guidelines they've been tested for an EF5 tornado, so they're all passed and meet their guidelines. The benefit of them is that they can go in some place that's existing. They can go outdoor or indoor. Again, they're not watertight because you have to have ventilation. So there's like lots of stuff, you know, so many square inches per person for ventilation, so many square feet per shelter for a person. So there's lots of, you know, calculations that are in there and stuff. But that's definitely something that is, that we see. A lot of you guys are all passionate about being on boards for FEMA and all that stuff. My passion has kind of turned towards grant writing. I would love to see people get grants to put tornado shelters in so that they can afford them. And then also maybe even work with, we're working a lot with the DNR in like parks and different things like that. So after the Iowa State Fair last year, we did a booth there and it exploded. So we had military people reach out to us, police officers, DNRs, different things like that, that they might have different facilities in their communities, you know, to do something like that. So I'm a huge proponent of getting it going, and also the newest thing that I've been doing is meeting with insurance agencies and trying to get, like, you have a multi-car discount, so you can get a discount on your insurance for having, like, you know, various things, and the insurance people may be able to speak to this. But I would love to have like a discount for people on their homeowner's insurance if they have a tornado shelter in there. Because a lot of times right now, what I've noticed in Iowa is that you have two things that are very common. The first thing is that we all have a basement, and you think a basement is safe, but you guys have all experienced it. I've experienced it being in Greenfield and in Winterset. It's not a safe haven for you. There's still risks involved in it. But then also the second thing is that people that are building houses, they're not even talked about, especially slab on grade. Builders are not even mentioning that to people. So I'm like, I love to have people educated, find out what their opportunities and what their options are, and then you find out if it's fit for your home. So we do have, locally, we have a display. If you'd like to see it, it's at the Mulberry Market. We also have a mobile showroom, and I have it here tonight. If you wanted to see a shelter, it's just on the out these doors and on that side of on that side of the building. But it's something that you can come see. I'll leave it open for a little while. You guys can experience it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to tell you all of the logistics about it. But as far as the latch pins and they're ADA compliant, we have one of the few shelters that are truly ADA compliant for a door. So they will say that they offer them, but the width and stuff like that, and some other factors that go into it may not be really ADA compliant, but ours is. So they're for anybody. They can go in a basement, on a main level, outside, inside. Then you also have like a locking option. There's a couple people in the room that have them already, so if they're willing to share that, then they can share their experience of that
We
shelter.
installed one in our business out there, so.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me, Todd, and allowing me to speak. And if I can answer any other questions, I'd be happy to.
Bryce Shaven. I guess my question's for Grant, and I've talked to Alex about this already, but the tornado dumped a lot of debris in the Nishnabotna River on a farmer's ground that wasn't really affected, by the tornado, so there's tons of metal and stuff in there. Is there any help that landowner can get to clean that river up? Because it really does look pretty bad, and I'm sure it's unsafe for anybody that would be hunting or tubing the river or something like that. So if you could look into that and possibly find a solution, that'd be great.
I will look into it. I'm not aware of a specific resource that covers that. How wide, is the entire, how would you know?
Probably a mile wide.
Mile wide, okay. So, but yeah, that's appreciate you sharing that concern.
What do you do? It's hard to get at. It's not an easy fix, and the landowner shouldn't probably have to bear that cost. So,
no, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I'll get your contact information after.
George and Julie, you guys have any pointers or things you learned or want to share? Just like, wow, we didn't know this.
Up here, like I said, take pictures.
Take pictures.
Well, and we had, the day after, Sunday, whatever it was, we had kids from ICANN who were going to go to Minden to help, but they couldn't get into town. They seen us carrying stuff out of their basement, stopped, didn't know one person there, stayed for 2 hours and left. We didn't even know who they were. And that's the people. The people, if you are not out helping somebody, shame on you, because there was somebody you could have helped do something. Because these people that were driving around, gawking, taking pictures, it's like, go find something to do. That first house you stopped at, go spend an hour. You should find something. There's people who had children, go watch one of their kids. There was plenty of stuff to do. There's still plenty of stuff to do.
I know, that next morning I took out a full 59 and I felt like I was in slow motion. I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. and knew so many people and ended up at McLaughlin's and I felt like I need to clone myself and yeah, you're right. Question back here?
This is for Brent. For the insurance aspect of it, my recommendation is to do like a one-on-one insurance class when you have your clients come in to see you. And the reason is there's a lot of first-time home buyers. They don't understand the insurance aspect of it. Same thing with vehicles. So if you could spend a little bit of time just explaining to them, they're excited buying that first home, but just the coverage aspect of it.
Diane would love to sit down and go through your whole.
You're getting really, really good at it. And I do want to say that the siding situation, we are seeing a lot of. So call your insurance agent, that's not me or Brent, and ask them about undamaged matching of siding or roofing.
Yeah, so one thing to say is an issue in Iowa. We are one of the few states in the United States that actually has a state law that's been upheld by, that's a separate thing, it's the Supreme Court. So, but there is actually, it's a state law. It's not an insurance thing, it's a state law. There are some generalities in there that say reasonable, and that's where generally the hiccup is. But 5 years ago, you couldn't buy an undamaged roofing or siding endorsement. Today, 75 or 80% of the companies offer it. So like in your case, I think the guy from Newton said 3 sides were damaged. For $30, you can add an undamaged siding matching endorsement on your home policy. And in my case, I have 1 siding damage, I'm paying for the other 3. So my siding does match. They'll replace all of them. Roofing is the same way. A lot of roofs have more than 1 side. A lot of times hail only affects half to a third of the roof. Well, that can be a problem. There again is an undamaged roofing, and you can do interior as well. It's not as common, but there's both. So there's so many things that have been added in the last 5 years because of these. I personally hope state law changes, and it's an insurance company's responsibility, so you don't have to rely on state law.
I have 2 questions, but they're really for law enforcement. There's nobody from law enforcement here, is there? I can see. Okay, then I'll ask you, Alex, because you're the closest thing to it. And they're just nosy or my own questions. Is it true, I heard, and maybe I'll say victims could say, was it true that there was looting of unoccupied properties? People that came in and stole stuff. Is that a rumor? That's a rumor I heard. Did anybody hear that? See that?
I had heard that was a concern, but I had not heard it here.
Okay.
I know in Minden there was some, but I had not heard of any here.
There was damage to houses that had gotten hit by tornadoes.
You mean human?
Yeah, like people went in after the fact and destroyed what was left of someone else's house.
In Minden?
In Harlan.
In Harlan?
Outside of Harlan.
Okay. Okay, and then my other question for law enforcement is, based on the videos that we all saw, I understand why storm chasers, that's their job, they like to go fast and follow the big black cloud, endangering their lives and others. But why do the cops do that? When, to me, I think I'd rather have a cop safe where he can help me back here. You know, did anybody else think about that? All these cop cars were going, and I'm all for law enforcement, but they can't arrest those clouds. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm truly curious.
I kind of have the answer if Alex doesn't.
Go ahead.
I'll answer that.
Okay, yeah.
We're all trained we're trained to protect the community, and we're all communicating. We're trained in storm spotting also. We cannot guarantee that a storm spotter group is coming to town. When this storm happened, I was actually in Washington, D.C. And I had one of my colleagues that I was at the same conference, and he was a storm chaser, and he says, you live in Southwest Iowa, don't you? And I said, yeah. He says, let's go look at the storms, because he said, I think there's something serious here heading your way, and it's coming out of Omaha. But we can't guarantee that those storm chasers are going to be here. And so we are here to not only protect the community from theft and fire and everything else, but we're here to alert the community, let the comm center know what we have in our eyes right now. And so that's part of our duties, to help protect the community.
The storm chasers, actually, if your house was gone, they stopped to make sure everyone was okay. They actually, because we had nothing that was drivable, they actually gave rides to people to town. We had one that stayed with us till we were ready to leave, and he took us, and he's from Wisconsin, and all over the place, he stayed with us and took us to town.
Really?
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say too. My husband was out checking hogs, so I was home alone with the 3.5-year-old. And he, I don't know if everyone knew that. He followed the storm chasers to our house. They saw it hit our house. They came in, obviously, right before Trevor to make sure, you know, that everyone there was safe, that we could get out, that we had everything we needed. Like, I think they came maybe 30 seconds before Trevor did. They're like, we are EMTs, you know, is anyone hurt? Do you have, like, is everyone in this house safe? And obviously it was yes. But on a follow-up to that, we were leaving. Trevor and I went back to the house after bringing our daughter somewhere safe. And the sheriffs did stop by and ask, you know, this is your address. We know these are the names of all of the people who live here. Is everyone safe? Is everyone okay? We need to call the comm center and let them know there, so that we have a list of everyone who is affected and who is okay.
We had, our daughter and son-in-law had a storm chaser that got trapped right in front of their residence. And there's power lines in front of him and behind him. He's hollering out at my son-in-law, what do I do, what do I do? And he told him, keep your, you know what, in the vehicle till someone comes along and can handle the power lines. So they were definitely out and about and got some very good footage.
Yeah, there are definitely good storm chasers, and there are not so good storm chasers. And we had a mixture of both in the county that day. I know, speaking from a law enforcement and fire perspective, that's one of the things we talked about in our after-action review, is how we can check houses more effectively and efficiently. So that, just as a information, what we had talked about was putting a big X on somebody's house with a can of spray paint. So if something does happen and you see a cop bust out a can of spray paint, you're not vandalizing your house. That's how we know that that house has been checked and we don't need to go back there. But those are just some things from the response side that we learned, because we had people going to the same house a couple different times. So I don't think that's all.
Anybody else with last thoughts or questions? Okay, I was just going to say, anybody from the panel, as you've been listening, did anything come to mind?
So I just want to remind you to think about your preparedness and your recovery. So, you know, where are you going to hide? How are you going to let your family know? You know, if this had hit the city of Harlan instead of rural, it's likely that we would not have had cell coverage out of town to let people know that we're okay. Everybody would have been on the phone trying to reach. So have a plan for how you're going to let everyone know that you're okay or that you need help. Check on your neighbors, know how you're getting out of your house. You know, it's always good to have more than one route out of that house. Think about how you're going to take care of your pets. Have their vaccine records available so that you can shelter them at a kennel if you need to. Put money aside. Obviously, everybody needed money this time around. So just a couple of thoughts.
well, we are about at 8:30, and that's what we had scheduled. Thank you again, I think it was a great conversation, notes taken, things shared. Obviously, if you guys have afterthoughts and want to get a hold of anybody, please contact myself out at the college, or Alex, or Jordan. We'll try and get those answers, but thank you for coming tonight, I think it was great, so.